Welcome back to Friday Factorio Facts. My name is Niels, and we are doing more of these reactions. I've been taking a little bit of a break due to Dyson Sphere program, but it's time to catch up. So in this episode, I'll be talking a bit about the train schedule changes. I'll be talking about the parameterized blueprints, and then I'll focus a lot more on the bulk inserter update as that is actually the one that changes so much in terms of designs, and well, that's where my focus is. So if you like these reaction videos, be sure to hit the like button. Leave a comment below with something I missed, something you find is really interesting, some new possibilities that we can access given these new features that are coming in the upcoming DLC. Let's start with the train control improvements, as it's called in Friday Factorio Facts 389. And this is really a lot about the interrupt. The interrupt is a new thing that is added to a train schedule, and it is primarily focused on, it seems like the pain was train refueling, that you kind of have to have on a normal pickup and drop off train schedule, you need to have one of them being responsible for fueling, because otherwise there is no fuel, and that can be a little bit cumbersome, especially if you have sort of a big network of trains, that you have to make sure that everywhere there will be some place for refueling. So they added interrupt, so basically say if fuel is below something, go there instead, and it'll add a temporary stop. Now the first thing I thought as soon as I heard this, I was like, why not just only have interrupts? And that's exactly what they sort of came to the conclusion afterwards, that you can probably have like multiple interrupts, and then basically identify what is on the train, and based on what is on the train, go somewhere. Or maybe even you can do use circuit networks to sort of control it. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of potential in this. I can't really see it right now, but I definitely see that's a potential, so that we can actually have trains that will go anywhere to anywhere. Like imagine a case where we would have one train schedule that take care of everything, and then have all the trains that are sort of adhering to the same train schedule. Well, okay, maybe one for liquids and one for bulk, but still having fewer train schedules that would then sort of be allocated for different purposes. Or there could be like long haul trains that would be sort of going to mining operations and hauling it back. They could be sort of one category, and that would go based on whether there are iron, copper shortages in the network. They would go there and pick up. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to access, instead of sort of managing, which is what I did in my my mega base. Then it was a problem that I sort of had to keep track of how many iron trains and copper trains, and it was getting 80 something of those trains each, and it was getting a little bit cumbersome, because you had to make sure that you never exceeded a certain number. So these interrupts are going to be really interesting and really good to add, and I'm really looking forward to just really abusing that to the absolute maximum when it's available. Now here they mentioned the depot problem, that if you start having crazy, very flexible train schedules, then you might end up in a situation where there will be too many trains wanting to go to the same location, and when they have destination full, they just stop where they are, and that's a big problem. So they have added this, if destination full, then go to a depot. I feel that that's a solution to a solution, right? Or it's a hack to a solution. It seems like, oops, they have a really cool feature with destination full, and that causes another problem, and then you just patch a fix to that problem instead of sort of having the whole thing integrated. But you know, it's there, it's going to work, and we're definitely going to be accessing it. The next thing is the reservation update, which seems like a really small thing, like just thrown in here. It is monumental for the way that I look at train schedules. That it's a problem that I didn't understand why it was like this. Basically, when a train is fully loaded and ready to depart, it leaves the reservation, but it still is stuck at the station, because it can't go to the drop-off station if the drop-off station is still accessible. So that means in terms of sort of there is a full train at a loading location, but it doesn't reserve that train station anymore. So now it's only when it leaves the block, then it frees up the reservation, which I think is absolutely amazing, and something I'm really looking forward to. That's something that has been constraining my train networks as it is now. So this is going to be really nice. Then a little bit on organization. The interrupts are global. I think that's an excellent idea, because if we think about the interrupts that you want, go to a depot, train refueling, those kind of things, they really should be generic, so that you can actually upgrade them once, and then they'll apply to all of them. Similarly, when it comes to train groups, I think that's also an excellent idea, because when this is something that happens a lot to me, I have iron trains or copper trains, and then some point I realize, I need to make an extra condition to all these trains, and then I have to manually go through all the trains that are just pick up iron, drop off iron, and then add an extra condition like weight or inactivity or something like that, and it's just annoying. So if you have it as train groups, then suddenly you don't need to have a list of hundreds of trains, you now need to have a list of tens of train groups. So that's a super nice improvement, and something I'm really looking forward to see implemented, just making it a little bit more convenient. And I guess that's kind of all there is to this one. The coloring is something that's neat. I never really been a big advocate of the coloring, because it just took too much time to find the colors and match it up. But in this case, if you can have a blueprint that is for an iron station, then that could be an iron color, and then that would automatically apply to any trains heading there, which would be nice if the trains are more flexible, and it'll just be nice, colorful. Although you lose the fact that the trains will be slower, because trains are red, and red ones go faster. Parameterized blueprints. I'm a bit ambivalent about this one, because it says that the pain is that when you stamp down multiple train stations, you have to change the name of those stations, and then the example they give is completely nonsensical. And I feel that this is solving a non-issue in the grand scheme of things. It is nice, it's useful, and I will use it for my blueprints, but it doesn't really, the pain from the problem isn't very big. Like, how big of an issue is it to have multiple stations, or to stamp down a copper station and go like, okay, well, it's a generic station, but I have to change it to copper or iron depending on what it's actually picking up. I don't feel that's a lot of pain to be involved, and if you need it, you're gonna need circuits anyway. I need circuits anyway, so having that as part of it is not really a big deal. And I don't even think that this is actually solving it, because I don't think you can have the train station name partially change as a parameter. I don't know, it doesn't seem like it, but the idea is I'm not super thrilled about this. I think that it adds an immense amount of complexity, and the upside is very low. Maybe I'm missing something, but and if I do, then leave a comment below so I can check out what I'm missing. So here's the example that when you have a blueprint that has parameterized values, then you can get a parameterization open GUI that you can then access and set up the values for each of these things. I think that's a lot of things that, like, if you think about it click for click, that means I don't think you're saving any clicks. Like, in order for me to use this, I have to, when building it, not use a generic one, but actually change the generic one to something specific case, and set parameters or set these new values in here. And then when I stamp it down, if half my stations are going to be iron and the other half are going to be copper, then now I need to add values for every single one. I'm just not thrilled about this. It seems like one of those cases where it is a developer that seems dead set on making things super generic for the sake of being generic, and it's not something that really applies. I think it's good for me, because my blueprints will be even more generic, and I can then make it even easier for everyone to access it and just stamp down these things. So, but for the average user, I don't think this is going to be useful. It just sort of, now it's another GUI that you have to consider. And it was solved. And again, the example, I know that they are doing basic examples, but this seems a little bit elaborate. Recipe 1, recipe 2. You can also set dependencies. Now this just tumbles down the deep end here. Like, dependencies where ingredients, like, what is the use case of this? What is the use case where you want to build a blueprint that is so generic that it can be used for anything, whether it has 1, 2, or 3 inputs, and based on that, the blueprint unfolds? I think it's super cool for conceptual builds, like self-expanding base, that kind of thing. But for the average user, what kind of blueprint have you built that is so generic that you need to have all these things? The one thing I can maybe think of is for a hub, where you have an assembler and then request items, and then you basically go, well, stamp down the assembler, set the recipe, it automatically sets the dependent things and then set those as requests in the requester chest. But I don't know. It's a simple copy paste from the assembler into the requester box. And then it gets even worse, for me at least, with the part where, I want X plus 1 or X times 2. So I want twice as many red belts as I want yellow belts. It's odd. It's just odd, this one. This seems like some developer was on a quest to make things generic for the sake of it. But fine. I'm going to use it. I'm going to be testing it and working with it and incorporating it into my blueprints in the future. Just seems weird. And now for the big one, the bulk inserter. Bulk inserter, stack inserter not doing stacks, bulk inserters not doing bulk inserters doing stacks, stack inserters doing bulk. Yeah, great naming. Please, for the love of God, change the name. Stack inserters must be able to stack, and bulk inserters do bulk, right? It makes no sense that you sort of had to come up with another word. And I know you've been discussing it internally, but please, you cannot have a stack inserter that doesn't stack. And if you do, you have to stop using the word stack. You have to use pile, like in Dyson Sphere. So it's a pile of goods on a belt. It's not a stack. It's a pile, because then bulk makes more sense. Maybe that's a bit semantics, but we'll talk about the functionality of the bulk inserter. Then this is a new inserter type that is the only way to add multiple stacks, bulks, I don't know, on belts. And as you can see, it can go up to 4. You can also see that each swing takes 16, so it has higher capacity than a stack inserter that does not stack. The bulk inserter that does stack is 16 versus 12 for the stack inserter that doesn't stack. So you have more capacity, but the downside is that it only swings when it can do the full thing, which is really nice, like really, really nice feature. So it will always do the maximum stack size, which means you have to be a little careful if you manage multiple inputs, multiple outputs. Do that with a bulk inserter that operates for stacks, get it? Then if you do that, then there is a risk that it jams. So be a little bit careful about that. I don't think that's going to be a big issue, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, what does this actually mean? That means that you effectively have 4 times the capacity on the belt, because you can stack things 4 high. It also means that things that are not stacking, bulking, I don't know, will only take partial stacks, but stacks can never be merged. And I think that's an excellent simplification to make it manageable. It's also something that sort of forces us as users to sort of work around it, that if you can't sort of, if you have a long belt that in the beginning has all the capacity, fully maxed out capacity with full stacks, and you start grabbing from that belt, then it gets thinner and thinner as it goes along. You might want to sort of restack it, and then merge another stacked belt on top of it so that it gets refreshed as stacked belts. I don't know, there might be something that is needed, but it's definitely interesting, because that means you can't sideload. If you sideload, it only puts into empty spaces. It never sort of takes a 2 stack and a 2 stack and merges up to a 4 stack. So it's interesting, and I think that's a good consideration. It's done because then the model becomes easier for them, and it is not something that hurts the user. It's something that for us, the user, it becomes a design criteria. It becomes something that we can design around and work around and manage into our builds. So I think that's excellent. Another small graphical change is the fact that you can now see that items are being stacked in an inserter. Previously, you couldn't see what was actually on the inserter, or currently, I would say. But now you can, even though it's sort of only half of the stack size, bulk size. But it at least gives you some sign of sense that, oh right, it's not idle, it's not stuck, it's just filling up. Especially for items that might be producing slowly, then you can say like, oh okay, it has 7 items. Okay, it's gonna be a while until it starts swinging with the 16 items in the bulk. Also, when we saw the big mining drills, I was commenting on belt capacity, and it just felt a little bit problematic that it could fill up a belt incredibly quick, especially with higher quality. But we can now see that it's actually already incorporated, because big mining drills can output as on stacks. And I just noticed a nasty graphical thing here, but that's hopefully something they'll fix. You can see right at this location, they actually clipped through. Oh my god, cancelled immediately. And then a small change that I think is nice is the fact that they are taking out filter inserters and all inserters become filters. I think that's really a nice little convenient thing. It was just a little bit of a hassle to have multiple inserters here and there, and now that means we can use the white ones as bulk inserter. But they're saying like two different, they're saying they free up two colors, the purple and the white one. We've only seen the white one, so what is the purple one going to be? I don't know. Purple one's going to be awesome, I'm sure. Something else that they kind of had to do was adding faster belts. And this gets interesting. I know it's a stack of fish running on this belt. And here's an interesting thing. This also has a longer underground. It now reaches 10, which is nice. It's actually possible to see this. The blue belts are starting to get a little bit flickery. And with the spacing of the arrows on the belts more spaced out, then you can actually better see what's going on the belt. And I think that's really nice. And it's good to have this belt. But what does that actually mean? That means previously or currently, we have a belt capacity with a blue belt of 45, but with the new one we have a belt that's 60, but it can be stacked, so that means 240. So that means that belt capacity, end game belt capacity, has now been multiplied by a factor of 5.3. That's insane. That is so much that the poor trains might actually be in trouble when it comes to bulk transfer. Like, think about it. Stuff like coal that is not very dense. Suddenly you can transport 240 items per second on a belt. It changes some equations. And it also means that if you look at a bus build, you don't need to have like 12 lanes of copper, 12 lanes of iron on a bus. You probably only need 4 lanes of stacked copper and iron on a bus. That's interesting. That's really nice as well. And there's going to be a lot less capacity. It also means that as you scale up in terms of tech, then you start getting better belts, and then you get better stacking, and then you get the last belt, and then you sort of unlock the whole thing. So there's going to be a gradual increase in belt capacity. I'm imagining that it's going to be the normal progression up to blue, and then you get the stacking on top, and then you get the better belts at the end, because that would sort of be a more linear progression on capacity increases with tech. But we don't know. We just know that it's on different planets and it's deep in the tech tree. So a small change here, so you can kind of see it moving. I mean, it's not easy to see it moving, especially with a YouTube compression or Twitch compression, but it's going to be interesting. I think it was necessary to add the higher belt capacity. Well, it definitely was necessary to add higher belt capacity. But there was also like an upper limit to how fast the belts could be. Sort of in a realistic part, you already have issues with yellow inserters not being able to pick up from blue belts. So now there would also be red inserters would probably have issues picking up on the really fast belts. I don't know how that's going to work. But now with the stacking, you can actually make do with slower belts for a longer time, because stacking will help a lot on, or bulking. I don't know. Stacking will help a lot on the throughput or on the capacity of the belts. So I think this is a massive change, and from me and my perspective in terms of my designs, it means that every single endgame blueprint has to be redone. Yay! Which is good, right? It means that we're going to have like really, really late game blueprints that will use stacked belts, and they'll be awesome, and they'll be weird, and they'll be different. I really hope they change beacons. I hope they change it to the way it works in space exploration mod, because that is so much better, because beacon builds in vanilla Factorio are super boring. It's just 2 lines of beacons and then stuff in the middle, and that means every single build looks the same. So please change it. Please let's see what beacons are going to be changed. Like I hope that they're going to be changed, but that was just throwing it out here. I think it's very exciting with the bulk inserter. I think it's something that definitely changes a lot on how we are going to work in the game. So really excited about it. I hope you are excited as well. Leave the comment below on some things that we didn't think about, how that's going to interact with our current way of working. Leave a comment below. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care and stay effective.